Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our weekly update. I'd like to begin by expressing my deepest condolences to the families, the friends, and the Malton community as they grieve the loss of Ijaz Chowdhury. It's always incredibly heartbreaking and sad when a member of our community tragically loses their life. I was in Malton on Sunday evening to personally express my condolences to Ijaz's family and to the wider community. They're hurting, they're upset, and they're angry, and they want answers, and rightly so. I want answers. They want answers, and they want answers quickly to what happened. And while I wish I had those answers for them right here and right now, the SIU is handling the case and must be the ones who will speak to the details. While I know many don't necessarily agree with that process, I am urging the SIU to act expeditiously and to conduct their investigation quickly and to release their report to the public. There is no simple answers to solving these complex problems. What is clear is that in the light of recent events, both here at home and south of the border, is that the time is now to explore how we can reform policing to ensure police can best support and build trust in the communities that they serve. No one should fear calling 911. Police cannot and should not be the answer to every issue in our community, and that rings true especially for mental health and addiction issues. We need to put public health at the center of these conversations. You have my commitment that as mayor and as a member of the Police Services Board, we will be going through the police budget and looking how policing can be done differently with the goal of community safety and well-being to ensure that we never lose a member of our community in this way again. I will also be advocating, along with my GTHA mayors, for the province to jumpstart funding for mental health and addiction allocated through the Shared Health Priorities Agreement with Health Canada. And tomorrow at Council, I will be moving an anti-racism motion that recognizes the work that we have before us as an organization, as a corporation, and also as a community. This motion will outline the actions we will take as a city to combat anti-Black racism and all forms of racism and discrimination against racialized communities in our city. Our city prides itself on being one of the most diverse and inclusive cities in the world, but it is clear that we have more work to do to ensure that our institutions are more reflective of the people we serve and that everyone feels welcomed, respected, and treated equally. Our work to confront these challenges is never done, but I'm confident that by working with council, with city staff, and the broader community, we can take significant steps forward. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Lawrence Lowe, our Medical Officer of Health for Peel Region, Tim Beckett, our Chief of Fire and Emergency Services, and David Wojcik, President and CEO of the Mississauga Board of Trade. Yesterday, Mississauga got the green light to enter Phase 2, and as of Wednesday, June 24th. This is the right decision and the right time for Mississauga to further reopen our economy. I know this news has been very much appreciated by both residents and businesses who are eager to get life back to the new normal. This decision is also reflective of the significant progress we've made as a region over the past 3 months. We are in a good position here in Mississauga. Cases have stabilized, and we're on the tail end of the curve with only 14 new cases reported yesterday. This is no small feat, and thanks to the actions of our entire community and that of Peel Public Health, that we are where we are today. So my thanks. Friends and family will once again be able to enjoy a cold beer on a patio, a dip in the pool, playing a game of soccer, getting a haircut with their favorite stylist or barber. Our local businesses, who are our friends, our neighbors, and our family members, will need our help to get back on their feet after what has indeed been a very challenging time. Key to reopening our economy is also working to gradually lift restrictions on air travel. A healthy economy relies on the swift movement of goods and people. Toronto Pearson Airport here in Mississauga has a plan in place to gradually increase flights into and out of the airport. And this is good news for the 50,000 people the airport employs, many of whom are local residents who are eager to get back to work. Our airports, airlines, and the travel industry have taken a significant hit because of the pandemic. Airline travel has changed. And that's why today Toronto Pearson launched their Healthy Airport Commitment, which outlines the health measures and new standards for healthy travel passengers can expect to see the next time that they fly out. From mandatory masks to the health's highest standards for cleaning and hygiene, physical distancing measures, touchless check-ins, plexiglass barriers in all licensed airport taxis and limos, and shortly, mandatory temperature checks. The airport is instilling public confidence in air travel and helping our economy to rebound. I'd like to thank the GTAA and Toronto Pearson for their leadership and their efforts to educate the public on these changes. We also have a plan in place and are thrilled to be reopening city facilities and amenities included in Phase 2. Residents will once again be able to enjoy many of our amenities that make Summerville memorable. We're ready to inject some life back into Celebration Square. Yesterday, staff freshly painted 48 physically distancing circles in the square. We are ready for visitors. In the coming weeks, our food trucks and the weekly Lions Club food market will be reopening, so you'll have a safe place to hang and soak up the summer. And on Saturday, July 4th, we will start reopening the wading pool at Celebration Square, our splash pads, with the exception of Huron Park, which is currently undergoing construction, outdoor pools for fun and lane swims, but pre-registration will be required. You can no longer just drop in for a swim. Artificial turf fields, select baseball diamonds, cricket fields, picnic areas, photography permits in our parks, and soccer fields as of July 13th. We're excited for people to get out and to enjoy our city once again. And while we celebrate this important milestone today, we must commit to keeping COVID-19 prevention top of mind and making it part of our daily lives and routines. And with that, I'll now turn it over to our Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Lawrence Loh, to provide us with a brief update on Peel Region's response to the virus. Dr. Loh?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good morning. I too would like to extend my condolences to the family and the community on the passing of Ijaz Chowdhury. This tragic event is certainly a reminder that there is no health without mental health, and that racism is very much a public health issue. Turning to COVID-19, as of this morning, Mississauga has seen 2,564 cases. 2,196 have recovered, 152 are active, and 216 have sadly passed away, 151 of whom were long-term care home residents in our community. We remember those who have passed, grieve with their loved ones, and stand with those who have been impacted by this disease. Altogether, however, our community's COVID-19 story is increasingly apparent. In Peel and across Ontario, we have had a successful pandemic response consistent with our unique context. Together, we have saved lives and preserved the healthcare system. Let's recall how we got here. In early January, Peel Public Health's contact tracing apparatus went into overdrive, along with our partner health units across the province. We acted quickly, having learned the lessons of SARS and hearing of a novel coronavirus across the sea. Consider how connected the Greater Toronto Area is to places that saw misfortune before we did: China, Iran, Italy. While our first case arrived in Toronto on January 25th, it is public health's contact tracing efforts that held off community spread until mid-March. Contrary to what commentators might say, those were not 2 months of inaction, but in fact 2 months of preparation, all in the middle of flu season, bought and paid for by the contact tracing efforts of local public health units across Ontario. In mid-March, the growing crisis in the United States brought a flood of travelers home that established community spread. We quickly moved to institute closures and curtailments. Peel and Mississauga answered the call, and together we seized the golden period for action, and we flattened the curve. You sacrificed, staying home first, and then learning to stay apart. We kept up our tracing, isolation, and outbreak investigations. Our paramedics, hospital and healthcare partners tested and treated, and our frontline workers kept our communities going. And the results speak for themselves. Our hospitals were challenged, but never overwhelmed. Keeping counts lower kept lives saved, and over 80% of our cases that recovered never even saw the inside of a hospital. Now, we always knew that closures would be temporary. They brought things under control by keeping people apart. That is critical when faced with a contagious disease with no vaccine or cure that spreads from person to person. We always knew that closures would eventually need to be reversed to minimize further health and social impacts, which is why I supported the province's decision yesterday to move Peel and Mississauga into Stage 2. Lifting these restrictions is an important milestone and a testament to the work that we have done together. As we move forward, however, let me be clear, we must not waver. COVID-19 is still the same virus, and so, while it is the right time to move forward, we must do so cautiously, remembering that this foe is still in our midst and can reappear at any time. We must practice the 4 core behaviors to limit risk. If you are sick, stay home and get tested. Wear a mask where distancing is not possible, such as in indoor spaces or on transit. Wash your hands frequently and practice physical distancing, avoiding crowds, sticking to your social circle of 10, and staying 2 meters apart from anyone outside of that social circle, whether in public or at gatherings not to exceed 10. Also consider recording your interactions with a journal or diary. This will help with contact tracing if, despite your best efforts, transmission still occurs. We must all practice these 4 core behaviors to put this first wave of COVID-19 fully behind us. I also call on owners and operators, as you reopen, to put in place precautions that encourage these behaviors. Visit peelregion.ca/coronavirus for resources to help develop a reopening safety plan. Creating a safety plan will help you meet your legal obligations to keep your employees, visitors, and customers safe. Together, we can stamp out COVID and keep the gains that we have made. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Our local businesses have much to celebrate today. I, for one, look forward to a crisp lager on the patio of one of my favorite pubs, Cuchullen's, tomorrow afternoon. See you there. And now I'd like to invite David Wojcik, President and CEO of the Mississauga Board of Trade, to speak to what entering Stage 2 means for Mississauga business community, along with the road to recovery will look like here. Thank you. David?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, for inviting us to be part of your press conference this morning. First of all, I would like to thank our frontline healthcare workers and emergency service workers who have taken care of us and protected us through this pandemic. Also to the many businesses that remained open in order to serve and provide products and services to all of our residents in Mississauga. To those employees that went to work every single day, we want to thank you as well. The Mississauga Board of Trade would like to thank the Premier of Ontario, Premier Ford, and the Government of Ontario for announcing that Peel Region can now move and proceed into Stage 2 of business reopenings tomorrow. This has been a most difficult time for our businesses, and it's been the most difficult in our lifetime. Many are struggling to make it through to even get back to opening their businesses on Wednesday. The Mississauga Board of Trade has been a strong advocate and supporter of Mississauga's business community throughout this pandemic, offering assistance, guidance, and advice so our businesses understood the support programs available to them. And the City of Mississauga, in particular the Economic Development Office, have been great partners with us in working through this pandemic. Madam Mayor, we would like to also thank you and the members of City Council for also being advocates for our business community, even when things looked very bleak and reopenings not even considered. As we move forward tomorrow, let us all play a role in supporting our local businesses so that we will rebuild Mississauga and bring our city back to the strong economic engine it has always been. Further, the Mississauga Board of Trade has established a Mississauga Economic Recovery Group, which will assemble 49 CEOs and presidents, and they will continue to work with the City of Mississauga on a path forward. Let us be mindful of the importance to continue to listen to our public health experts, like Dr. Lowe, in how we operate our businesses, interact with our clients and customers, and protect our employees and their families. Together we can do this. I wish everyone continued success in their business and rebuilding their business as we reopen tomorrow. Thank you.
I want to close by taking the opportunity to provide you with some details of what our virtual Canada Day celebrations will look like this year. Although we may be apart, we remain united as a city and, of course, a country. Mississauga is ready to rise and shine, and we are very proud of the talent from across our city that will be on display on our Good Morning Mississauga festivities. We have a wide variety of hosts, performers, and athletes with deep roots in our city who will be leading the party. From NBA star and homegrown hero RJ Barrett to ET Canada's Sangeeta Patel, Global News' Farah Nasser, with performances from Johnny Orlando, Fido Blanco, and Mia Martina, virtual activities for the kids, contests, and so much more. We've got you covered on Canada Day. Festivities will stream on www.goodmorningsaga.ca starting at 10 a.m. on, of course, July 1st. I encourage all our residents to join us. I know I will be tuning in. Happy Canada Day, Mississauga. Thank you. And now I'm happy to take questions from the media.
Mayor Crombie, your first question comes from Ashley Newport from Mississauga. Ashley, please go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Crombie.
Good morning.
So you mentioned today that tomorrow at Council you're going to introduce an anti-motion. We've recently been in touch with someone who's done some research and found that of all the director positions in the city of Mississauga, they're not typically filled by people of color. Is your motion going to address hiring practices at the city, and are you going to try to find ways to hire more people of color into management and director positions going forward?
Ashley, it's a great question, and of course I invite you to join us tomorrow for our council meeting. This will be our 13th, I believe, council meeting that will be live and virtual tomorrow, and we will have a fulsome discussion on the topic, but I know you probably have the motion in front of you, so of course we will stand against all anti-Black racism in all its forms. We will be looking at our internal policies and programs to ensure that we're free from racial bias and don't negatively impact any Indigenous or any other racialized groups, etc. We will be proceeding with the city's workforce diversity and inclusion strategy and with the planned diversity and inclusion survey to help build on our public accountability. So the answer, of course, is yes. We do intend, we always, of course, our hiring practices are based on merit, but of course we want our workforce to represent the microcosm that is our city and to better reflect the demographics of our city. And of course, you know, it takes many years to get to those very senior positions, but we actively recruit people who are representative of our community.
Thank you. And my follow-up question, so I think it was probably back in either March or late April, the city decided not to revisit opening brick and mortar cannabis stores because it was right in the thick of the COVID crisis. But now that the city's opening up more fulsomely and the crisis is mostly, or it seems to be getting under control, which is good, is opening or giving brick and mortar cannabis stores the green light to potentially open in Mississauga something that the city is going to consider over the next few weeks and months? And do you think that if you were to allow them to open, this might help the city recoup some revenue potentially that's been lost over the course of the pandemic?
Ashley, it's a great question, and I am aware that that subject will be brought back to council in another report for a second look at it, probably later this summer or early in the fall.
Your next question comes from Steve Cornwall from the Mississauga News. Steve, please go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Crombie.
Morning, Steve.
Morning. Just a question around the police budget stuff. But based on previous years, the police budget won't be passed until much later in the. Happened recently with police involved shooting. What immediate steps are you going to take in the shorter term to reform policing it, and are you willing to lay off police?
So I think you're cutting out a little bit, Steve, but I think your question was around the police budget and what steps and what measures are being taken. And of course, you know, I've been saying publicly that we have to change the mindset, ensure that police have the best supports that they need to maintain and build community trust, but we also have to explore reforming our community policing and calling for additional funding from all levels of government to address those very critical issues such as mental health and disability, community safety, and really deal with the root causes of crime such as unemployment, housing affordability, addiction, etc. So important. We know that law enforcement can't be the answer to every one of the issues in our community. So we will be looking at the police budget line by line and looking at how policing can be done differently with the goal of community policing and well-being, community safety to ensure that incidents like what we saw on the weekend doesn't happen once again. So certainly there are no easy answers to this issue, Steve. We will be looking at the budget in a different lens, and we're very hopeful that other levels of government also address these issues, that root causes of crime need to be better funded so that our police aren't responding to those calls, aren't the first responders in times of crisis on mental health issues.
Has the killing of EJS shaken your faith in Peel Police's capacity to respond to mental health crises?
What was the first part of that question? I'm sorry.
Has EJS Chowdhury's death shaken your faith in Peel Police's capacity to respond to mental health crises?
I will say that I'm very shaken by the events in Malton, and my sincere condolences to Ijaz Chowdhury's family. I had the opportunity to speak to his wife, met his children and his nephews. And the nephews are leading the protests, and it was a very, very tragic situation. I know the community is in pain. I'm in pain. We're all upset. Everyone is angry, and of course we want answers. But of course there is an active SIU investigation, and so I cannot comment because I'm also sitting on the Police Services Board, but I have asked that we expeditiously bring that report back to the community, and that the SIU move quickly to provide the community with the answers that we need. But certainly, you know, with these sorts of public health calls, mental illness and addiction calls, we're suggesting that there are different ways of handling them. Even if a call is put through on the helpline, the distress line, or on 911, that these calls be better triaged to identify the appropriate group of experts to better address and provide the support that's needed. And perhaps that's done in multiple languages, the languages that serve those communities.
Your next question comes from Isaac Callan from The Pointer. Isaac, please go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor Crombie.
Good morning, Isaac.
I'd like to ask about the Budget Committee, if that's okay.
Sure.
You said some very nice things about Pearson Airport at the beginning, but if you look at the staff report that's on the agenda, there's 18.4 million in losses under the PILT scheme just in 2022 alone. Mm-hmm. So what's the plan for advocating to the province, which the city has been doing ultimately unsuccessfully for years, to finally get this changed? Because that's an enormous amount of money to lose in 1 year.
It would be an enormous gap, Isaac. You're quite correct, and I think I believe it impacts our budget in 2022. So we continue to advocate for reforms. Certainly, there are the formula for assigning the PILTs is an outdated formula that doesn't take into account of increased passenger counts, and it doesn't take into account the cargo that moves through the airport as well, which of course has a great impact on our roads through the transport trucks that drive it out. So we have been advocating for reform of the PILT formula for many, many years, and we're very hopeful now that this will be a very large impact to our budget in the coming years, that the government will hear us and sit down and discuss, along with Toronto Pearson Airport, the need for reforming that formula.
And my second question is, you spoke last week at the end of the week at the QTRIC conference.
I did.
On smart and electric transit, and there's some pretty ambitious numbers in the climate action plan that was passed in December, around 159 million for hybrid and electric buses. Are you concerned about the amount of money that is going into climate action in the context of these budgets and being able to meet the 2040 target with these losses that are occurring?
Well, certainly the greening of our economy is the right direction to move, and I think we all agree with that. And we're very hopeful that the impact of COVID will be contained to the next 3-year horizon, and that we will still move forward with our climate change action plan, and is very dependent, as you know, on the ICIP money coming from the federal and the provincial government to assist us to green our fleet and implement many of the recommendations that you found in that report.
Thank you.
The next two questions are for Dr. Lowe.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead with questions.
Dr. Lowe, I'm going to read this question on behalf of Emmett Ba from Weekly Voice. Are offices in Mississauga allowed to reopen tomorrow as long as they follow the provincial guidelines?
So that's correct. The province has specified specific economic sectors that can reopen, and provided that you have a workplace safety plan in place, which is highly encouraged, and you can learn all about developing one at peelregion.ca/coronavirus, and also looking up the resources available from the Ministry of Labour. And you stick to the 4 core behaviors, making sure that everyone on site is able to physically distance, practice good hand hygiene, wear a non-medical mask if they can't stay apart, and stay home and get tested if they're sick. Then provided it's a sector that's been identified through the stage 2 reopening, I don't really see why you wouldn't be able to open starting from tomorrow.
The follow-up is there a specific number or email to report violations in workplaces or retail places, and what actions can be expected for violators?
Absolutely. So if there are concerns about workplace violations that may be occurring, you need to call the Ministry of Labour's Stop the Spread line. I unfortunately don't have the number memorized. It's a 1877 number, but a Google search will bring it up for you. And calling that line will allow you to report potential violations of the Occupational Health and Safety Act to Ministry of Labour inspectors, who will then take follow-up action as needed. Thank you for the question.
Mayor Crombie, the last question comes from Khaled from My Second Home TV. I'm going to read it on his behalf. can people still go to the square for Canada Day if they sit in the physical distancing circles? Will it be open?
Yes, Celebration Square will be open, as you know, as I announced. We have painted 48 circles, and there is a maximum capacity of, well, up to 480 people. I don't suppose every circle will contain 10 people from one family. So we, of course, people can come to Celebration Square, or they can enjoy the virtual celebration online at goodmorningsaga.ca.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie. That was the last question for today. This concludes today's press conference. On behalf of the Mayor, I want to thank everyone for participating. Our media team will be sharing a link to the video of today's press conference with you shortly. Have a great day and stay well.
Thank you.